Hello, my name is Kate Burke, and I'm the newest City Council member on Spokane City Council. Most of my background is in policy, and I worked for the state for our Senator Andy Billig for 4 sessions, and before that, and still currently doing a lot of nonprofit work here in the city and the surrounding area. So I'm excited to be a part of the board.
Well, and welcome. Linda?
I'm Linda Thompson, representing the City of Spokane Valley. In my day work, I do Greater Spokane Substance Abuse Council. I've done substance abuse and violence prevention for many years, and I'm part of the Washington Association for Substance Abuse and Violence Prevention and the Washington Impaired Driving Advisory Council, so I've done a lot of legislative work on prevention and health issues, and I'm very glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you here too, Linda. Arnie?
Well, I'm Arnie Woodard. Lived in Spokane Valley all 65 years of my life. City Council for the last 7 years, starting my 8th year. And I was appointed. I was the only no vote last Tuesday. Just kidding. But anyhow, I will do as I do in most places when I am appointed to something, as long as I'm involved on or at that, supposed to be at and active at that board or council or whatever. I will give everything I have to bring energy and support and or debate. As Chuck knows, I love debate.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Arnie. So let's go ahead and have roll call. And now that we're formal, we'll start with you, Arnie, please. Roll call, your name, who you represent.
Arnie Woodard, Spokane Valley Council.
Don Condon. MD, local position.
Everything. Okay.
Linda Thompson, City of Spokane Valley.
Kevin Freeman, City of Millwood, Small Cities Representative.
Josh Kern, Spokane County Commissioner.
Bob Lutz, Health Officer.
Tony Smith, Administrator.
Al French, County Commissioner, and with the indulgence of the chair, I'd also like to recognize my appointment. She'll be official next week, but Andrea Forstadt is in the audience and stuff, so she'll be joining us.
I'm Chuck Hafner. I'm the chair, and I'm at-large person. However you want to take that.
Mary Cuny, Spokane County Commissioner.
Kate Burke, City of Spokane.
Michelle Fossum, Legal Counsel.
And Pittsnople Recording Secretary.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, there's a couple of areas that I want to speak to prior to getting into the citizen input. Number one, as you well know, a week or so ago, we had a terrible incidents and killings that happened in one of our high schools in Florida. And most of you know, or if you don't know, at one time I was principal at Central Valley and University High School. And as this was going through all this scenario of what was happening with these young people and these kids, I just absolutely lost control of myself simply because of knowing if it was in my school, with 17 kids or adults that were shot and killed, I'm not quite sure how I'd be able to handle that. Mainly because of the closeness we would have with each other, seeing them in the morning and the evening, working with them during the day, and thinking, what in the world are we coming to in our world? And there has to be a solution to that. There has to be a solution to that. But simply because I was so involved with my kids, and I think Mary can mention that, she's one of my kids, is that it was almost unbelievable that something like that could happen. So at this time, I'd like to take a minute of silence regarding to that. If you would please bow your heads, and we'll do that, please. Thank you. There's a couple other items I want to speak to, and that is for people to be involved in the different groups that we have relative to committees and exactly how extremely important they are. And I sat down last night and I said, why are they important? Why should we belong to a committee? Because I know, talking with Josh, I think, Josh, you were telling me you have about 17 committees that you're involved in, or 22. Mary's probably got just as many. All of us sitting here at this table are involved in so many other committees and involvement that you say, how in the world do you have time to do it? But the old saying, of course, is, if you're a busy person, you'll get the job done. But again, I go back simply saying that under the circumstances, our committees are not really a meeting like every day or every week or every month. It's periodically, but we do get together. But what it does, it helps us as a board understand in a better way of what's going on with the health district. As an example, by serving on this board and the committees, it gives us better insight to the operation and policy aspects of the health organization. And especially now when we're going to be having some financial concerns down the road, and we have to have people more involved than ever before to make sure that the challenges that we face as a health district and within our community, we have the necessary resources to take care of it. So again, with the committees that we have, and here again, they're the policy committee, which is extremely important. Because we as a board can sit down and come up and look at the policy. And that's what we're kind of all about as a board, our policies. We set up policies where the staff can work and feel comfortable doing their job, and the fact that we have their back, so to speak. In that respect, we go back to the Budget and Finance Committee. I think at our last meeting that Commissioner Al had mentioned the fact of the cuts that we were going to be looking at, and they're serious cuts. So we need to make sure that whatever we have, the people that we have in the Budget and Finance Committee, we have a clear understanding of what we can do with the financials that we have coming to us, or what we need, again, in order to take care of whatever concerns we have with the health district. The Education and Communication Committee, again, they're all important. But there's the committee that informs us of what's going on and what's happening. We as a board. Again, we are so involved in so many other things, sometimes we lose track of exactly why are we sitting here on this dais. Why are we here on a regional health board? Why? What are we doing? So again, if you haven't signed up for one of these committees, I would suggest that you ask, and I will ask you, I think, Arnie, I sent you an email requesting if you'd be one. And knowing how you used to operate in the past, do you read your emails, Arnie? Okay.
I do, but where'd you send it, Chuck?
But anyway, I was hoping, Arnie, that you would be on the policy committee.
He sent me one too.
And also at the time, I think I asked Josh yesterday if he would be on it, so I'd appreciate it if the two of you, because here again, as we go down the road, these policy committees are going to be extremely, extremely important. Dr. Condon is going to be on the Education Communication Committee and also on the Budget and Finance Committee. So thank you very much for volunteering to do that, even though it was a little arm-vest one way or the other. So it looks like that we will, on the agenda, it's on, I think, 7A, that we have our committees filled at this time. We'll go back to that. But Ann, did you get all the people that are going to serve on what committees so we can vote on that and make it official?
I think we need to review them when it comes to items.
Okay. Thank you very much. The other thing that I want to kind of mention to you is that you as board members have an opportunity to talk to members of this health district. And what I'm talking about is that there are 6 divisions. So I know that Torney will, with the administration, would be more than happy to have you come in with his team leaders to discuss the overall picture of the health district. But at the same time, we have community and family services, disease prevention and response, environmental public health, health promotion, non-divisional, which is an opioid treatment, and I understand that Senator Cantwell spoke to that yesterday. But here again, you have an opportunity via Torney, with, I'm sure Ann does all the work, by the way, I do want to mention that, of setting up a time when you could meet with not only attorney and the administrative staff, but also all these departments, and with all the divisions that we have. I've done it twice, and every time I do it, I pick up more and more information of the qualifications of the staff. The things that they're involved in is just unbelievable. We don't even have an idea as a board of all the things and the programs that they are involved in. And at least we should have a general idea, and by doing so, by the two things, going on a committee, and then secondly, make arrangements to go around and meet with staff, I think you'll find the same thing that I did. It's very, very refreshing. And it's very satisfying to me as a board member and as a chair for this year that I could simply look at what this staff is doing and how well they're doing it. So that's the end of my comments. Then I would like to now then talk about citizen input. As you well know that we changed the format last year, and what we were trying to do, of course, is make it possible for participation from everyone. We set forth the fact that because of all of our assignments that we have outside of the health district, that we know is extremely important that within a 2-hour period, from 12:30 to 2:30, that we had business to take care of. We also understood that we had an obligation to allow citizens' input as much as possible without, again, taking away from the main priority that we have, and that's to take care, again, of health district business. And so it was kind of changed to the point where we were going to go ahead and set up a program where we would have 30 minutes for citizen input, which means at 3 minutes each, that would be 10 people. But we also realized that there are many times, in the past at least, that there are more than 10 people that wish to speak to a particular subject. So when I find out how many is speaking today, I have one of two choices as chair. I can simply say rather than 3 minutes, we'll go to 2 minutes, and the 2 minutes provides where there would be 15 people to be able to speak during that period of time, so we can conclude at 2:30, then that's what we do. Now, if we do not have enough time, then I will make arrangements as the chair to allow people to speak when we finish our 2:30 business. And that means at that time, then I'll have to decide. If there's 50 people that want to speak for 30 minutes, no, I'm not going to let that happen. But if there are people that have fewer times after the meeting, in order to enable staff members and board members to leave because they have other commitments, then they will be able to do that. Are there any questions from the board regarding to that? Did I summarize it okay or not? Did I miss something? Okay. So the list is the list looks like we're going to finish in the 30 minutes. So Elizabeth Graffis, please, will you come up? Your name, where you live, and you have 3 minutes, please.
3 minutes?
Mm-hmm. And I will not interfere with your speech during the period of time. At the end of 3 minutes, to simply tell you we're all through. Okay?
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I came here today to offer my complete support for our county health board and its strong immunization policy. I am a lifelong resident of the Spokane Valley with family ties that dates back well over 100 years in Spokane County. I mention this because of my familiarity with much of my community and its proud history of independence and common sense. However, what I am witnessing these past few years are the troubling elements and movements under the guise of freedom that seeks to make inroads into our government institutions. I became aware of it politically several years ago as harmful political proposals and radical posturing were brought forth well out of our conservative mainstream. My family, as well as others, bore the brunt of more than a few threats and libelous, slanderous comments hidden behind dark postings online, often using allies to hide the identity of the perpetrator. Fortunately, my community knew better. But now, I am witnessing another attempt to intimidate an institution that protects us as surely as law enforcement ever could. This is our county health system and board that is on the front line of our defense against biological terrorism and pandemics and epidemics that either are here or just around the corner. The intimidation has moved on, unfortunately, to the safety net that protects us all. This winter, my family faced life-threatening illness and worry over the current influenza epidemic overtaking our hospitals and community. Literally, people dying all around us. It really struck home to me how fearful so many parents and elderly people must feel when they cannot fully guard against some of these illnesses because of compromised immune systems and/or the medical inability to gain immunity through immunization. I totally share their apprehension more than ever now to have to live among those who reject the medical and scientific studies that keep us healthy as humanly possible, as much as possible. Lastly, as I offer to support this board, I would like to close with a somewhat altered statement from long ago. In order for extremism, ignorance, and yes, political opportunism to flourish, ordinary citizens have remained silent. It is now time for those ordinary citizens, including myself, to stand up and make our majority voices heard. I applaud your efforts to keep our community safe. Thank you.
Carrie.
Carly.
Carly. And Carly, she reminded me that I told her she could speak first. And somebody, Mrs. Graffis had already signed up, so I said, you can speak second. That would be just as good as speaking first.
And I said, that is completely okay with me.
Okay, thank you, Carly.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Again, my name is Carly Howarth, and I live in the city of Spokane. On behalf of a group of us moms, thank you for the work you do to keep Spokane County one of the best places in the world to live and to raise a family. And I have lived other places, so I really believe that. A couple weeks ago, we took your advice and used an alternative method of communication. We wrote a letter and sent it via snail mail. I got to tell you, it was interesting. I actually went into a post office to mail it. That never happens these days. Anyhow, our letter's aim was to share our thoughts on the wording of the exemption item in your legislative agenda and to ask a couple questions. This letter was added into your packet so you could read it today. Thank goodness for Ann and all the work she does. I really truly believe admin do all the work. The gist is that we hope to work alongside you to help reword the legislative item in question to clarify the board's position while also quieting our fears that SRHD may someday decide to lobby to take our vaccine rights away. Some more moms caught wind of the positive relationship we're trying to forge with you and were happy to send in their own letters to share their personal reasons why having all 3 vaccine exemptions is important to them. Copies of those letters are what is in those big yellow envelopes that are on your little spaces. We know that you are all busy people with your regular jobs to attend to week in and week out, but we hope you can carve out some time to read them, consider what they say, and please accept our invitation to have a dialogue on rewording the legislative agenda. Thank you, and I hope you have a great end to your week.
Okay, thank you. Kim?
I'm Kim from the Spokane Valley, Kim Stadler. I would like to take a moment to thank the board for the compromise made last month regarding public comments. It has shown me that some on this board are interested in listening and working with us. It is hard at times to not view you all as my enemies. For the new people that have not heard me speak, I have a daughter that is terminally ill after suffering severe side effects from the MMR vaccine. It's not disputed. This did happen. I've been watching her suffer for 9 long years. Any talk of limiting vaccine exemptions terrifies me. I would have no choice but to play Russian roulette with my other children, and I have already lost that game once. Vaccine exemptions are important to me, and I am asking each of you for compassion and understanding going forward. Today, as Carly mentioned, we brought packets for you all to read. The packets contain letters from people you represent. A few of the ladies and I thought this would be a great alternative to cut down on public comments while still allowing you to hear from citizens at your convenience. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kim Helm. I didn't realize there were 2 Kims. Did you guys decide which one's going to come up first? Okay.
You guys really got to get a taller microphone or a step stool or something. Okay. Can you hear me okay? Kim Helm, City of Spokane Valley. So thank you for this opportunity to address you, and also thanks for your consideration last month and amending the public comment section. We really do appreciate that. This means a lot to us to be able to come here and speak with you. So we hear over and over again that vaccines are safe and effective. I'd just like to offer a challenge to you to go ahead and Google vaccine injury attorneys and see what you come up with, because your search will find that there are countless lawyers that are dealing with vaccine issues. The Vaccine Injury Compensation Program has paid out almost $4 billion in damages. A study funded by HHS showed that less than 1% of reactions even get reported to VAERS. That's $4 billion, and who's paying for it? Since 1986, when the pharmaceutical companies were exempted from having to pay out, it's now the American public's position to pay those injury fees. So that's all of us. We're all affected. All of us in this room are affected by that. So are vaccines truly safe? It only makes sense if you really just don't think about it and don't do any research on it. Vaccine exemptions are important to me for a number of reasons and include all aspects, philosophical, religious, and medical. It's vital that we keep exemptions intact and allow each person the freedom to choose what goes into their bodies. For many, vaccines are not the best and safest choice for their health. I'd like to encourage you to remove the limiting exemptions wording off of your 2018 legislative agenda, or at least clarify what it is that the board is trying to do with that wording. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Stefan?
Hi, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here today. I'm really nervous. If you can't tell, my heart's beating in my throat, so I'm so sorry for the stuttering and squeaky voice, but I really appreciate the time. I know you guys spend your time, your busy hours being here, and I know you've heard a lot on vaccine exemptions, and I know you're probably tired of hearing about it every month, but I've never been here, and I just want to take a couple minutes to share my story with you. So I never had given vaccine exemptions any thought before I had my second son. In fact, prior to him, 2 years ago, I would have considered myself incredibly pro-vaccine. I really didn't care to know why anybody chose not to vaccinate their children. I didn't want to hear the stories. It didn't matter to me. My oldest son is fully vaccinated. I never asked any questions with him. I didn't do any of my own research. I had no concerns, fully followed the CDC schedule. My second son, unfortunately, is where my story takes a different turn. My little boy Theo just turned 2 years old in February 2017. Following Theo's routine 12-month vaccinations, he had what we would consider an adverse reaction. He lost all of his speech within 4 days and had a severe regression in all of his gross motor functioning. I'll spare you the details of our long diagnostic process and the 7 specialists we saw and all of the tests that we did, but we later came to find out that Theo had mild encephalopathy, was suffering absence seizures, had a new thyroid disease that was discovered, and became immunocompromised. All due to his vaccinations received at 12 months. We found out that Theo has a disorder where he cannot properly detoxify as his body should be able to do on its own. He has an alarmingly high level of aluminum found in his bloodstream, which is a common vaccine adjuvant found in the Pentacell vaccine, among others that he received at his 12-month visit. So my family's lives have been turned upside down because of the decision that we made, and we're assured by our pediatrician was the safest and smartest thing to do for our little boy. It was a choice I made, it was a choice I had, and I appreciate that I was able to have that choice. That falls on me, and I will live with that forever. And that's why I think it's so important that parents have that choice. We know our kids, nobody knows our kids like we do. And I just hope that going forward, I get to have that choice, that somebody else doesn't get to tell me that I have to give him the other vaccines that he eventually will be due for. And I hope that you'll consider that for your own families and for people that you know, for your grandkids, for your own kids, your nieces and nephews. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather. Is this Nildy Riley?
Oh, Nicole.
Nicole? Okay.
I apologize, my right.
Okay. So you haven't seen mine recently, have you?
I should have been a doctor.
Okay.
Thank you all. I appreciate this opportunity to speak. I did not get this opportunity to speak in my home.
Would you speak up closer to the mic, please, so that we can hear you?
All the tall ladies went before me.
Okay.
My name's Nicole Riley. I live in Deer Park now, but I'm a recent refugee, medical refugee, from the state of California. I moved specifically because of vaccines. I live 2 miles from the beach my entire life, and I moved for that beautiful being over there. I'll get emotional. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, I'm an ex-vaxxer. My little brother, who's 17 years younger than me, was vaccine injured, and he has severe epilepsy. And when we found this out, that it was vaccine damage, we went through all the processes needed to get him the help he needs. But when I found out that I was not able to exempt my child from these same vaccines that destroyed his life, I was irate. And the doctor told me that the only way I could have a medical exemption for my child was if I had another injured child of my own, not a brother. And I just think that that's crazy on so many accounts to see this damage done and not be able to protect her from the same fate or possible fate. We don't know. We're playing a game. These vaccines do carry damage possibilities to some children, and we don't know which ones. And until we know how this affects every child, we need a way to let parents make these decisions for our children so that I'm not forced to deliver the same fate to my child that my brother was. I am lucky. I have the financial means to literally uproot my entire family and move out of state. So many families do not. I literally changed our entire lives over one topic. I live in snow now. I'm used to 70 degrees, 24/7, 365. This is all new. And I love it here. But what I love more than anything else in this world is my freedom to choose what's best for my baby. I choose her food. I choose what she watches on television. I choose everything. Why cannot I not choose what's injected in her body? I'm her mother. I created every cell in that being. I just want the freedom to choose. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you. Just thank all of you for being here this afternoon. This board is open to public comment, and we encourage you again to come and speak and participate. We take this very serious. The minutes that are taken, we look at and we see them, And so here again, understanding where your concerns are. There are some things that we can't do anything about. Simply a matter of state law. Will not allow us to do those things that perhaps trying to get what your feelings are and whatever. But we also know that we will relate your expressions to those people, of course, that are concerned. And I hope that you understand and realize that we will certainly do that. Okay, let's continue at this time. Next on the agenda, if I can find my agenda. Oh, I've got help next door. Let's go ahead. Chair report, I've already given my report. And so I'll end it at there. And Mr. Smith, Administrator Smith, please.
Thank you. We'll start with Dr. Lutz, and then we'll have Linda follow that. And there's not a financial report, so I will follow that.
Okay. So there it is.
Well, good afternoon. Not surprisingly today, yet again, I'm talking about influenza. Good and bad. The bad is that as of this date, maybe minus a day or two, we've seen close to 500 hospitalizations, most of which have been influenza A, which is typical for how influenza affects communities. We're starting to see an uptick in influenza B. But again, the infections have predominantly been the H3N2 strain. This reflects hospitalizations. Again, we're seeing primarily A, a little bit of B, again increasing, and then again primarily affecting those over the age of 50. There's been obviously a lot of conversation recently about the effectiveness of the vaccine. The CDC came out about a week ago and estimated currently, based upon information, that it's about 36% effective. That's overall. So again, noting that we're seeing primarily influenza A of the H3N2 strain, do note that again, overall, its effectiveness in all populations is only 25%. But higher in young people. Influenza A, H1N1, 67%, influenza B, 42%. And if the graph on the right demonstrates, here we are down here at approximately 36%, you see that it's significantly lower than what we were back in 2010, 2011. Definitely not the vaccine that we would hope. What we're seeing, however, again, and that's unfortunately typical with H3N2 strains of influenza, they tend to mutate quite often. And so when that's the predominant strain in the community, we will unfortunately very commonly have effectiveness of the overall vaccine not as high as we would see when other strains are predominant. With respect to our local data, we've seen 29 flu-related deaths, of which confirmed vaccination has only been 20% in that population. All have been over the age of 50. All have had additional comorbidities, typically heart failure, diabetes, or what's called COPD, which is a lung disease. I just put this on. This came from the CDC, and as you're obviously well aware of this, the influenza epidemic has truly hit epidemic proportions nationwide. In contrast to some seasons when it seems to sort of hit across the country in waves, this hit the entire country sort of at the same time. Our rates locally and statewide, however, are lower and less than what has been seen throughout the country. And we were talking with the DOH last week, and again, across the state, we are starting to see a gradual decline in the frequency. Not necessarily the severity, but the frequency of the illness. Again, noting, as I mentioned before, though, that we're starting to see an uptick in the influenza B, which is typical. So that's influenza. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. As Chuck mentioned earlier, I'd have just a couple things for you today. But as Chuck mentioned earlier, we hosted a press event with Senator Cantwell yesterday. And the purpose of this was to announce some legislation that she's introduced. The legislation focuses on greater control of the supply chain around opioid medications. And she also mentioned that there will be further legislation related to opioids coming out soon. We had a panel of speakers. It included us, VOA, the police chief, the sheriff, and the fire chief, and of course the senator. We had really good coverage. We had 3 TV stations there, the Spokesman and the Inlander, so a nice turnout. One of the nicer parts of the event was that our opioid treatment program staff asked several of their clients to attend. And so they were there to tell their stories, and they were able to speak to the media. And then they also had time to meet directly with the senator and talk to her. We had planned on taking her on a tour of the treatment facility and kind of show her how the whole operation works. But we ended up feeling like the time she spent with the clients would be much more meaningful. So we let that go on. And she actually stayed about 30 minutes beyond the time she was scheduled to leave. And I got a thank you note this morning from her staff. And just wanted to note that they said the senator was thrilled with the event and could not stop talking about the time she had with the patients. It really hit home for her and gave her a perspective of what was going on in Spokane. So I just wanted to give a big thank you to the opioid treatment program, particularly Julie and Ms. Steve for helping put things together. They dealt with quite a bit of chaos yesterday. So thank you for that, and really pass on the extra thanks to the clients for coming. So. Next, I just want to cover a legislative update. Bills have moved to the opposite house. We have the next cutoff tomorrow, and then the fiscal committee cutoff will be Monday. And there's less than 2 weeks left in the legislative session, so these short ones really do go fast. In your packet, I separated out those bills that are considered inactive at this point from those that are active. Of all the active bills, these are all moving along, and I just want to note a couple of exceptions of where things are at. Under Tier 1, the first bill listed, the opioid medications at educational institutions. The House version of this is now over in the Senate, but it has not yet been scheduled for a hearing or executive action. So not sure if that one's going to make it or not. Under Tier 2, the Tobacco 21 bills, these actually did not make it out of their House of origin, but they are considered necessary to implement the budget because they have a fiscal impact. So they are still alive, and the Senate bill is getting a hearing today. So those are, despite the fact that they haven't gone through the normal process, they're still in the works. And then also under Tier 2, House Bill 1047, the medication disposal system, we are still needing committee action on that. It did get a hearing, but it hasn't been voted on. And then lastly, under Tier 3, the lead-based paint certification fees. It's in appropriation, so it actually has until Monday to get a hearing and committee action, but nothing is scheduled yet. So any questions on any of that?
Any questions?
Okay, that was easy.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I have a few things to share with you. One is that our work that we had referred to as our Kresge Foundation work, we're now phrasing it Reaching for Health Equity. We have contracted with an organization out of Oakland, California, Human Impact Partners, to do a half-day training for us in March, and then we'll be coming back to do a larger group training on a full-day effort. We would welcome any on the board who are interested in understanding more about health equity to be able to attend with us. You are certainly welcome. In terms of understanding health equity, there's a 3-minute slideshow. It's got music background, but you have to read the cards. And if I make it full screen, it gets very grainy. So I hope that everybody can see it and read it as, whoa, I'm not sure why that didn't happen. Let's try again. Ann, any clue why when clicking on it, it did not? There? Going once. I may show this to you at a later date. Hello. I'm not sure why it will not trigger. So let me go on. It is a slideshow that we have shown to our staff, and it identifies two different individuals, and they have cards that simply identify their circumstances growing up and how their lives have turned out so differently. And it is a piece around social determinants that we in public health talk about regularly. So apologize that I can't get that to play, and we'll show it to you in the future. I want you to know that we are in the process of looking at a compensation project across the agency this year. This is something we had done back in 2004, 5, and 6, where we looked at comparative salaries for our staff, compared either to the Spokane community where those jobs have comparisons, or to specific local health jurisdictions similar in size to ours across the state where they are very health district specific positions, such as things that would be in environmental public health, liquid waste inspectors, or that sort of thing, which you won't find a comparator to in the local community. So we're in the process of establishing the criteria for this overall compensation project, and then we will be going out to get a contractor to help with this work so that there is a very objective perspective looking at it. We will be in the process of reviewing and revising both position descriptions and our classifications. In the last decade, the way that work is done in this agency has changed significantly, and we want to make sure that we capture that appropriately. And then we will have a compensation team put together from various levels throughout the organization to help guide and give assurance that this is being looked at objectively as we go forth. We anticipate starting this in the second quarter of the year. Also, want you to, excuse me. Yes, thank you.
So when you're looking at the compensation, are you looking at total cost of compensation, or just hourly cost, or how comprehensive is the compensation package going to be?
It will be looking at total compensation.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Other questions on the comp project? Okay. I want you to know that our more recent version of Spokane Counts, which is updated every 2 years, is out. It's on our website. And there are data visualizations now when you go to look at it that we utilize Tableau. This is what the new Spokane Counts looks at. There's roughly 60 health indicators in there, and those are things that we as an agency have an impact on influencing. And really encourage you to take a look at this report online. It's on our website. Here is an example of some of the things that we would recognize in the report. Things that are getting better right now, things that have decreased over time: vaccine preventable diseases going down, maternal smoking going down, drug-resistant infection, and unintentional injury. Those things are all getting better. Things that are not getting better: low birth weight, overweight youth, and food and waterborne disease. So just a snippet of the kinds of summary pieces that you can find in that report. Also, this is a sample of just one simple graph that you might find on the website when you go in, but when you go into it, you will have a chance to look at it just as the over time shot is showing you here, but you could look at the demographics or seek more information about the topic, and you can do this across the variables that are presented. Here is a sample of what it looks like if you go out live on the site, and this is per the discussion we had last month. This is what it looks like if you are looking at funding for public health across the state. So as you start looking at any one of our counties, you can see the amount of money that each county puts in per capita. And so that's what this graph would demonstrate for you. As we look around us, this is the amount that the various counties are putting in. So this is the kind of thing that you can see on that Tableau site, and you can go explore. No. Get out. I did not want to go back to there. We have been very fortunate to become the recipients of a Nissan Leaf car, electric car, donated to us by Avista. We will be utilizing this for some of our programs who transport clients, particularly in our HIV/AIDS program, where our case managers are working to assure that we can assist with housing for the people that we are treating. And we have said to our staff, you may not transport clients in your personal vehicles. The liability falls upon our staff, and we won't allow that to occur. But it is okay if we have a company-owned vehicle, and again, thanks to Avista for the donation of this to us. It will be powered and stored in our garage in the basement, and will be utilized as soon as we acquire the appropriate insurance and get the title shifted and that sort of thing. So thankful to have that ability and very appreciative of Avista. Any questions on any of that from me? Great, thank you.
Is that your report?
Yes.
Can the chair once a year use that car? Never mind that.
We can check with legal counsel.
I'm sure what you'd tell me. I was remiss in the fact that for everyone sitting here, and especially those with public input, interested parties or their authorized representatives may address the board by written communication, which you have already done, in regard to any matter concerning the Spokane Regional Health District's business. The written communication may be submitted by direct mail to board members or by providing adequate copies of the communication to the clerk of the board, who will then distribute copies to the board members. I was remiss in doing that, and I know Ann would be questioning how come I didn't say that, because I almost forget it every board meeting. So hopefully this will take care of that. Okay, let's go to the item number 6, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of January 25th? By the way, keep in mind that January 25th is probably one of the most important dates in my whole life. That was my birthday. So I'd like to approve the minutes January 25th, 2018, and the vouchers January 1 to 31st, 2018.
Move to approve.
Okay. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Thank you very much. Let's go to item number 7B, the resolution 1802. And as you've read the resolution, you've had this in your packet now, I think, for the last 2 months, simply because we had to put it through another official okay, which we've done through the county in order to do some of this. But the main rationale for this, and I think that for many of us that's been on this board for the last 5 to 6 years, we discovered that the people at large, the appointed citizen, which includes myself, Dr. Condon, and welcome aboard for the third person, is that there's been times that it's been difficult to find the qualified people that we really want. And the commissioners, of course, appoint those members out of their jurisdiction. So mainly, this is just housekeeping things to be taken care of on 18-02. So I would entertain a motion to accept this and then for a conversation. Michelle?
Can I step in because is this the bylaw amendment that you're looking at? Okay, so number 1, we hit A, but number 2 on a bylaw amendment, we have a 2-touch rule. So if it's going to be passed on the first reading, it'll have to be 2/3 majority.
2/3. Okay. Does everybody understand that? Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Move approval of resolution 1802 as presented.
Okay. Second? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, been seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? It passes by 2/3 then. Good. Okay, thank you, Michelle. Let's go now to 8A, please. Essentials and Core Functions of Public Health and Foundational Public Health Services.
Mr. Chair?
Skipped 7.
Which one did I miss?
7A.
Oh, I always miss one. That's the most important one, too. Okay, let's go back to 7A, adopt the committee membership. And this is what I have so far. For the Policy Committee, Breen Biggs, Chair, Kate Burke, Kevin Freeman, Arnie Woodard, and Josh Kearns.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
You certainly can.
First of all, I didn't know that I was going to be nominated to be put on one of these, or actually be on one before I had a chance for one meeting. Can I ask when the time usually is that these committees might meet?
It's not a set time, so it'll be dependent on all of our schedules. We'll work that out.
Okay.
Every committee is set forth by the chair with determined time and dates, so it's accommodating for the members of that committee.
Okay, thank you.
Do you still accept that? Okay, thank you. Budget and Finance Committee, Mary Cooney will be chair, Linda Thompson, Dr. Condon, and Chuck Hafner. Educational Communication Committee, Karen Stratton, who is ill today. I'm sorry she couldn't be here. Linda Thompson and Dr. Condon. We would like to have another member for the Education Communication Committee, and anybody would like to say yes. Do I see a hand anywhere? Do I hear a yes anywhere? No. Okay, thank you. We'll move on. The Executive Committee is pretty well set. That's myself, Breen Briggs, Kevin Freeman, Mary Cooney, and Karen Stratton. So those are the members that we have, Ann, presently. So can I make a motion to accept the members as stated?
We are also seeking a member for...
Oh, I beg your pardon. Kate Burke will be the Strategic Planning member. I'm sorry.
I move adoption of the committee roster as stated.
Do I hear a second to that?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those against? Okay, thank you very much. Now we're down to 7B. I mean 8A. Holy smokes, I'll get there pretty soon. Okay, 8A. I'm not on anything either. I wish I was.
So good afternoon again. Given that we have as many new board members as we do, Tony and I thought it would be a good time for us to sort of look at some of the foundational principles behind governmental public health. And this particular logo represents two components. First, what are referred to as the three core functions, which were identified by the Institute of Medicine in its report in 1988 entitled The Future of Public Health. And then embedded within the larger circle are what are referred to as the 10 essential services, which were subsequently defined, and again sort of help us as public health entities to look at those foundational principles that guide our work. So if you notice the outer circle, assessment, policy development, and assurance. Assessment, again, I think speaks for itself. It's sort of an essential piece for us to be looking and understanding the health needs of our community, investigating occurrences of health effects, potential diseases, and then looking and analyzing those identified needs. I'll jump over to assurance because, again, assurance, there is, as was mentioned earlier by one of the people giving testimony, and Tony, there is, again, an essential belief that we provide an assurance of health of our community. And in doing that, we obviously have responsibilities for enforcement for regulations that are defined by the RCWs and statutes. There's an expectation, again, that we will be implementing programs that, again, are serving the health of our community and evaluating programs that we are recommending. Information and education is part of policy and development. But I would argue that it's sort of, again, a very foundational piece for all that we do, because it's one thing for us to be doing the right thing by the community, but if we're not informing the community of what we are doing and educating them, then we're remiss in our responsibilities. We're also responsible in our policy component to be working with partners and collaborators. We cannot do it all alone, nor can others do it without our help when it comes to public health. And therefore, looking at those collaborations, those partnerships, is key in moving the health of our community forward. At the center of all this is research. And again, as we will commonly refer to, we are research-driven. We are data-driven. That said, we also have to be sensitive to emerging issues, which again, we may not necessarily find adequate or substantive data out there to guide our decisions in the moment. And therefore, while research-driven, we're also open to the possibilities that we don't know. And in that vein, it's important for us to be looking at those ways that we can learn more about those issues, and in doing so, forward the health of our community. This is sort of the foundational piece, which then leads to where we are right now, that Tony will speak to.
Over the last 5 years, public health has been working to try to identify, again from studies that were done on a national level, what are those core or foundational services that need to exist everywhere for public health to be effective anywhere. So this means those core components have to exist in a county like Lincoln County, who has a health department of 5 people, as much as it does in Spokane County, its neighbor, with 250 people working. And so if you look on this diagram, the large darkened red box would identify those components that are being defined as essential to exist everywhere. And so from a programmatic level, it includes communicable disease control, chronic disease and injury prevention, environmental public health, maternal, child, and family health, access to clinical care, and vital records. In the portion in the white below those bars that are up there are those capabilities that public health has to have in place to be able to create the services in those pipes above. So that is assessment, which would include that component that Bob just talked about as one of the core functions. It's both the surveillance and epidemiology that gets done. It's our emergency preparedness and response work. And as an aside to that, we need to find a time when we can do an emergency preparedness training with all of the board. I think it is really important for you to understand public health's role in that and yours as board members. The communications component is essential. Getting the word of public health out to our public is absolutely vital. Policy development and support, again, one of those core functions that was identified. As Bob just stated, this has to be done with community partnerships. The business competency piece is just our ability to effectively run this program and this health department. As this work has been done, what you see inside the red box is being established and defended as state-level responsibilities. These are things that states should pay for across the state. This should exist everywhere. Those items above the red box that are in the various bars that you see would have an identification of additional important services, but those would be things that would be funded more on a local level. As a case in point, if you go to the west side of the state, they may have a shellfish program that they find needs to be done. We don't need one in Spokane. So that shellfish program needs to be funded locally. If we have certain things that apply to us that are beyond that core foundational piece, then that would be things that we would look to put local dollars into. That could be something that would be in one of the bars above. As an example, Bob has talked recently about the concerns that we have over suicide in this community. That may be something that we put our local dollars into addressing that's above and beyond what a state level program would support. So, any questions about that? We will certainly be keeping you abreast of where this goes. This year, we do have some dollars that came for us to work in some foundational programs in the region. We are doing assessment work with our neighboring counties, assisting them. We did not go to the legislature for additional funding for this session, but next year we would anticipate doing so.
Any questions you might have? Okay,
Great.
thank you very
Thank
much. Okay, now Urban Cultural Trail.
Bottom one, thank you. Chair Hafner and members of the Board of Health, thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you today about a partnership that we have. Again, my name is Helene Dewey. I'm with the Spokane Regional Health District here, specifically in the Health Promotion Division in the Healthy Communities Program. And I have here Juliet Sinistera with the Downtown Spokane Partnership. So, the Urban Cultural Trail. So this is a partnership between public health and economic development, pretty simply. It's one that promotes not just economic development and health, but culture as well. In regards to health, we see this trail as a possibility to increase safety in our community, a sense of community, and physical activity. The idea actually came from other communities that have similar trails. Indianapolis and Washington, D.C. have a heritage or cultural trails in their downtowns to connect different parts of their community. So together, Spokane Regional Health District and Downtown Spokane Partnership contracted with Burger Partnership with funding that we received from Department of Health, Prevention First 1422, to conduct a feasibility study and stakeholder input sessions. And the outcome was a report that you have in front of you, the very bright blue big report. So the project plays really well into a lot of plans locally, like Spokane Regional Transportation Council's Horizon 2040 Long Range Transportation Plan. It plays very well into the downtown plan and to STA's Connect Spokane and many others. So about the trail. So the corridor already exists in our community in the downtown, which is really great. Riverside Avenue was chosen because it is the most intuitive to navigate and it has the fewest hard turns along that corridor. It has very wide sidewalks already, so there's really not a whole lot of infrastructure changes that would need to happen to make this cultural trail exist in the downtown. So as we see it, it's going to be a reinvigorated cultural trail pathway that would ultimately connect the Browns Addition, the MAC area, to the University District in eastern downtown. And this slide just really shows you how we'd like to see it kind of broken down along the trail. We're calling them character zones, and each of the character zones will enhance and promote its uniqueness of each neighborhood. So the Browns Addition could highlight the history in Browns Addition and the architecture and the homes within that area. Riverside area can highlight the architecture of our large buildings down there. So each character zone we see can be really unique and highlight the great things that are in that specific area. So along the way, not only will the trail connect and highlight countless other existing amenities and facilities and greatness that we have in our downtown, but it'll also be a destination where residents can connect with each other, can gather, and enjoy Spokane. One of my favorites is that we'll have an opportunity to address a misconception of walking in our community, and that walking takes a long time to do. Specifically, walking from the Gonzaga University District to Browns Addition is really a 40-minute walk. It's 2 miles. It's probably a shorter time frame than finding parking. So really being able to promote the walkability and the great things that we have in our downtown. And so I'll pass it over to Juliet to highlight some of the other interventions.
Thanks for having us here today. I work on economic development for the Downtown Spokane Partnership, and when I first met with Helene a couple years ago about this idea, we both got excited about the potentials around health and economic development. And our perspective from the DSP is really this idea of pulling people into the streets, getting them out, active, walking, patronizing our businesses, providing for more vibrant streetscapes and safer streetscapes. So this idea kind of plays into all of that. It also helps bring in some culture into our downtown, and it also connects to the MAC and the University District, both kind of cultural educational institutions that right now are really lacking in our downtown core. So we really wanted to see that kind of strong link and connection through signage, experience, and wayfinding to really connect those better into the core. So with that, I get to go through the fun part, the kind of concepts that were developed. And as Helene mentioned, we did do this with about 20, 25 stakeholders. I think we had about 3 meetings over the summer with the Burger Partnership to kind of generate these ideas. And one of the first ones that came out of it was this idea of interventions. And Burger Partnership is calling those continuous or linear. So these could be anything from, benches or bicycle, places to lock up your bicycle, to painted sidewalks. And what Burger really is proposing, I think in general, for this whole idea is light infrastructure. No major infrastructure is needed to incorporate this. We don't need to widen sidewalks. We don't need to add a ton of street trees. However, that said, the city right now is looking to upgrade Riverside Avenue congruent to this, and so those things may happen, but this none of these interventions require kind of major infrastructure improvements. Some other ideas they came up with was this idea of breadcrumbs. So it's really kind of branding the cultural trail. It has a name, it has a color associated with it, it has signage, it has kind of fun things that kind of pull you through it. So they're showing, potentially painted footprints or little medallions in the pavers themselves, or again, painted sidewalks. And then navigation is another key intervention. So this could be either through a smartphone device, it could be wayfinding, it could be painted wayfinding on the sidewalks. It's kind of this whole notion of experience and movement and story that kind of starts to pull people through the trail. And the trail in and of itself becomes an experience. And then the notion of storytelling. Different ways in the urban experience you can enhance our cultural story. So whereas the trail would really be along Riverside, we see signage pulling people, potentially over to the Fox and why that's important, over to the Spokane Club and why that, historic architecture is important, linking people to the river and to Riverfront Park. So Riverside would really become this central spine with all these kind of stories populating it and wayfinding that would start to direct people throughout the downtown as well. And there was also some fun ideas that Burger brought up with sort of this notion of the community being able to tell stories. So there could be rotating exhibits along the trail where people could could populate it with their own personal stories that could be printed out and exhibited along the trail as well. Amenities is another key idea. So everything from benches to bike storage to even like teeter-totters, areas of recreation and play. Right now, the city of Minneapolis is really looking at how recreation can be brought back into the urban environment. They're even looking at, I think, some curling type things adjacent to their sidewalks in the winter. So, I mean, this is sort of a trend that's happening nationwide. How can we get people onto our streets, being active, enjoying them in kind of a playful way? Parklets is another idea. The parklet ordinance and the street ordinance just went through City Council last year. This really allows for greater activation of our sidewalks and our streets. So this would be a key idea along Riverside. And then kind of ephemeral pop-ups. So, performing art stages that could pop up along the trail from time to time. Events could be coordinated along the trail. And then the idea of heroic interventions. So, key pieces of public art, something that really starts to build on the Spokane culture, on our history, on our present, where we're going, things that are playful and fun. There could be a lot of different ways to approach this project, but significant art should be a part of it as well. And with that, I'll let Helene take over. I'll talk a little bit about our next steps. We are right now, we're just in the process of kind of presenting around the community about this idea. We will be presenting to the MAC board in a couple weeks and City Council in a couple weeks. And so we're just trying to kind of build the momentum. We are meeting with city staff in the next few weeks about the scope of work for Riverside Avenue. They're very well aware of this. A lot of them participated in the stakeholder process. And then also this next year, there's updates to the downtown Spokane plan. So there's going to be a lot of discussion and coordination about how this gets integrated into that kind of community engagement process as well. So with that, I'll let Helene take over.
And at this point, it's just any questions anybody has.
Any questions? Quite a project.
Perfect. It is.
Unbelievable.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, hearing no questions, we'll go to the next agenda item. There is no executive session.
Right.
And so we'll now have a board member check in, please. Arnie, we'll start with you again. Anything? It means you're brand new. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Mr. Chair, you're doing a good job. Thank you.
Doctor? Linda?
Actually, I have a question. On the flu thing.
Just once.
You talked about 36% prevention, but do vaccines also help in severity or hospitalizations or death?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, certainly, and again, you and I both know that the recommendations are that irrespective of the percent of prevention that the influenza vaccine is given at any point in time, it's nonetheless still recommended because it may prevent, but in those situations when indeed you do succumb to the illness, it tends to decrease the intensity and maybe the duration of the symptoms.
I think that's part of the, of the advantage of the vaccine.
Thank you.
Oh, I have another question. I guess I did have something to say. Carrie has a proposal for this board. Maybe it's executive board. I just don't know where this is going to be brought up. She wanted some change in some wording. And so where's the appropriate time for that to be discussed?
I'll address that on my board check-in. It's
Okay.
policy committee.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Okay, Linda?
I just wanted to say I appreciate that we did have a moment of silence. And one of the things that we talked a little bit about at Spokane Valley Council is trying to figure out how we can support the Association of Washington Cities legislative policy around mental health promotion, or how to find services that will help cities and counties to deal with the issues around violence and mental health and how it affects our communities. And so Arn Woodard is on the large city committee with Association of Washington Cities, and I'm sure someone else is from the city of Spokane, to see how we could work with other cities across the state to support violence reduction or mental health promotion somehow to help our communities not have to face the shootings that are happening across this nation. And so I'm just putting in a plug for if anyone has an in with the Association of Cities or anything we could do from this board to help raise awareness about what we could do as a community. And I appreciate talking about suicide, are up in our community, that kind of thing. The other thing is I wanted to let you know we're having a Spokane Valley Youth Voice. We've just got permission to recruit teenagers who live in Spokane Valley to come on March 12th to have a discussion about what our youth would like to see in our community in Spokane Valley. And I'll just bring that back because I think our young people need voices in our community, and so that's something we're doing in Spokane Valley, and I'll bring that back after we have that.
Okay. Kevin?
Nothing at this time.
Josh? Nothing?
I had two things. I want to address the vaccine thing a little bit, but also just a heavy heart young person who graduated from Lewis and Clark High School last year, super high-performing person, took their life this week. And just, I didn't know the person, but I knew the family, and it affects a lot of families, and I was just struck again. We've had several youth suicides in the paper recently. So I think there's some work maybe coalescing around addressing it, and so I just wanted to put that out because it was heavy on my heart today. Secondly, on the some of the vaccine issues, I just wanted to say I appreciate everyone that did write things, and particularly there was a letter about the question of what's the health district's policy, and I thought it was a very articulate letter, and I agree that there was a little bit of confusion maybe from the takeaway from after the last meeting, but I just wanted to kind of say for all those people who feel really strongly about it that this generally applies in the health policy where we do legislative things. In my 2 years there, we have not considered advocating for rolling back exemptions or doing anything with exemptions. I mean, so that has just not been part of it. So I got a few letters that I read today where people thought we were actually proposing something. It's beyond what we could do anyway, but there just hasn't been a proposal on that. And this legislative session is just about over, but assuming I'm still on that committee, this fall, as we get closer to that, we'll certainly invite our committee to address that language issue and any other issues on that. But it's really the other thing I would say. I'm not the lawyer for the health district, but I am a lawyer and have dealt with things like this. And one thing that's different in Washington than California is that Washington's Constitution has been interpreted to provide basically individual control of bodily integrity. So what a legislature could do or not do about exemptions is very different than California, and essentially in Washington, my read of the law is that exemptions are essentially kind of a constitutional right. So that's just so you know. So I really don't. I understand why people are concerned about exemptions going away and that, but it's just really not in the agenda as far as I know. So I just wanted to put that out because there's a lot of energy being utilized on that issue. And I can't stay today to talk more because I have another meeting to go to, but I would be happy at another time to do so.
Okay. Mary?
So I just had a question, kind of still being new to all of this. With the press conference that was held yesterday, did we get advance notice of that? I mean, the notice that I saw was like at 10:30 yesterday morning. So I didn't know if it had come out sooner than that and I just missed it.
No, this was very late notice to us as well. But our intent is certainly to keep the board informed when these kinds of events occur.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know. Commissioner French, you were able to be here. I don't know how you heard.
I heard from Campbell's office directly. So.
Kate? Kate? That's it. Just a reminder for everybody that Board of Health meetings are typically broadcast Tuesday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 10 a.m. on Channel 5. And that our next regular board meeting will be March the 29th at the same time. So I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you, everybody.